Let's all go to the lobby, lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the Let's all go to the Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the Let's all go to the
What is up, brewskis? We are back yet again with another One Reel In podcast. With me, as always, Marco Dupa.
What's up?
I'm Adam Obesius Rodriguez, and this One Reel In is going to be a little special. We are coming in with the new rollout, a fan favorite, Not So Sober October.
Should I throw like a drum roll in there?
Please.
Yeah,
Please do. Marco, tell us a little bit about that.
So, Not So Sober October went off with a resounding success last year, the year before when we did it.
It's a loose term, success.
It got loosey goosey.
Sure did.
You're talking about loose terms. It got wild.
Yeah,
it got
did.
wild.
Yeah.
And so last year we kind of ramped up to one of the highest ABVs that you can find in a store.
Sure.
And this year I decided we're going to start with that and see how this year's Dogfish Head 120-minute fares. And Obi, without further ado, please give us that cold read, baby.
I'd be so happy to. It goes as follows. What you have here is the holy grail for hopheads. This beer is continually hopped over a 120-minute boil and then dry hopped for over a month. Enjoy now or age for a decade or so. This is the Dogfish Head 120-minute IPA, the Imperial India Pale Ale. Ages well, it's 12 fluid ounces. Where's my ABV? Where's that at?
So they don't have the ABV because the way that it's made, it could be anywhere from 15 to 20%.
Okay.
So they can't put like an actual.
It's comforting.
Yeah.
Like a range in my alcohol content.
Yeah.
Well, without further ado, let's open these babies up. There you are.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. There's a caution symbol on the lid here.
There is?
Yeah, there is.
Sick.
Again, very frightening. Let's pour it up, see what she looks like.
Oh,
Ooh.
yeah. Look at that color.
I said this off the air, but it looks like syrup.
Yeah, it really does. Look at that. An Imperial IPA. An Imperial IPA. Brother.
Ooh. All right, let's clink them and drink them. Excuse me.
There you go.
Oh,
We didn't.
it burns. It burns.
Burns.
All right.
Fuck! I just took a little sip of it off my finger.
Oh,
Yeah.
hits you in the back of the throat.
Yeah. It's just a game. You know, it's just a game. What's the point of that? Do you like you?
It's like the one chip challenge.
Yeah. Dude, by the way, when sometimes we review these beers and the value of them comes into question.
Sure. Yeah. Rarely, but occasionally, it's so strange that we need to comment on it.
And this, I don't know if it's outside of the ordinary or if it's something that I don't know. These things were hella expensive.
Yeah.
They're not fucking cheap. So if you see these in the store, if you're
Humble
listening to
brag.
this and you're like, no, I had to get rid of Frank. Sorry, to afford these.
Throw them up on the screen when you say that, just so people know what you're talking about.
I'll just pull a clip from the Bat Squatch episode.
The Bat Squatch.
But yeah, they yeah. Okay, let's rock and roll.
All right. Well, as I choke this down, we will be covering a movie that is a pseudo remake / sequel to a franchise that, I mean, I won't speak for you, but growing up was definitely in the zeitgeist of horror classics.
Oh yeah.
It is Candyman, the 2021 version, directed by Nia DaCosta, who is actually going to be helming the Marvels coming out next year in 2023.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, me neither.
Nice change of pace.
I did a little research for a change.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I know.
Look at us. Did you get a haircut?
I did not. I have it up in a bun.
Oh.
Thank you for noticing, though. Written by Jordan Peele, Wynn Rosenfeld, and Nia DaCosta. Yeah, I can't say exactly. Yeah, I know. It's already hitting my head. I'm sorry for the ums and uhs you may hear on this show. It is unprofessional, but we're struggling.
Yeah, it might get
weird.
Yeah.
That's part of the fun.
Yeah.
So I should preface by saying we are doing every week moving forward. We got a little pushed off of our schedule thanks to Hurricane Ian, but we're back on schedule, and we're going to be doing every week coming up One Real Lens on horror movies, but not just horror movies, but horror movies helmed, directed, created by black and brown directors, writers, producers, etc., etc. Because we think that just deserves a little spotlight.
It's important.
Yeah,
A lot of them are making good horror movies.
Sure.
And just felt like I need to do a little spotlight.
Yeah, exactly. So, again, we're starting with Candyman 2021. The original came out in 1992. Obviously, well, maybe not so obvious, but came from the mind of Clive Barker, a big horror head. His short story called Forbidden. And from there, I mean, again, turned into a pretty big franchise that has a lot of lows. The further you go, the worse it gets, as these unfortunately so often do. Budget was around $22 million, and it made back $77 million worldwide. So, a success.
Yeah.
All that being said, should we get to the story?
Let's do it. Let's breeze through it. Let the people know. If you haven't watched it, well, number one, if you haven't watched it and you're listening to this, thanks. But also, maybe you should if you don't want it spoiled. Because
Please.
The One Real In is a full-on spoiler cast.
It is.
So we're not going to hold any punches.
Yes, and it's currently available on Prime Video. So go ahead and check it out.
Mm-hmm. That's how I watched it.
Yes. So if it's good enough for Marco, it should be good enough for you.
And then I tried to watch Drunken Master, the original, the OG from like 1978.
Okay. Yeah.
Not that good.
It's not.
But we could talk about that later.
not,
But just
yeah.
throwing that out there, it's just not nearly as good as the one from the, 2000.
No.
I mean, Drunken Master 2 is a stone cold classic.
Sure. Yeah.
First Drunken Master. It's not.
No.
Jackie Chan calls a lady a bitch for like no reason. Aren't you stupid bitch?
Aren't there
Whoa.
aren't there absolutely unnecessary boobs in that movie too?
Yeah. The
I-
whole thing is like it's a weirdly paced comedy, and you're like, but then people get murdered in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's I don't
Strange.
know. Yeah. Golden
Yeah.
Harvest type stuff,
I,
you know.
I stumbled upon that one in the bargain DVD bin,
Yeah.
and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I watched it, and I said, "Huh?" But a movie I did not say "huh" after watching was Candyman 2021.
Nice. Very nice.
So, Candyman 2021, in essence, is about a.
Technically 2019.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right.
It was actually done, and then the pandemic pushed it back.
Yeah. So released in 2021, at long last. Which, thinking about it, it would have been nice to see in a theater, like a packed theater.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been a good time.
Yeah.
But alas, the movie itself is about, in broad strokes, pun intended,
Nice.
an artist, in a sort of upper middle class living situation with his girlfriend. They seem sort of like they're reaching into the upper crust of the art scene in and around Chicago, but also trying to, I guess, find a way to be socially conscious with his art. And who I'm speaking of is Yahya Abdul Mateen II, who's playing Anthony McCoy.
Nice. Did you have to look that up too?
No, I know him.
Okay. No, I mean how to pronounce his name.
No, you always say that. You always say that with Yahya Abdul Mateen II.
I mean, it's not the easiest name in the world.
It's easy. It's pronounced, as it's spelled.
Yeah, I mean, if it's an African name, apparently African names are pronounced phonetically. I didn't know this, but I guess they are. So I guess that makes them pretty easy.
Sure.
I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Quote me though.
Okay. Anyway, so yes, Anthony McCoy is this artist living with his girlfriend Brianna Cartwright, who's played by Tiana Paris. And yeah, it seems like they're kind of reaching into that upper crust of the art scene. There's a lot of pretentious people in their friend circle. But he's an up and comer. He's trying to make a name for himself. And he decides to go to Cabrini Green, which I didn't know this. I didn't realize was an actual neighborhood in Chicago. So even though the actual high-rise buildings have been destroyed, there are still some buildings in the outlying area that are about to be destroyed because there's going to be some new developments coming for the wealthy people.
So there's real gentrification. Some of the themes that they touch on in the movie are actually happening in real life to the neighborhood of Cabrini Green. Right.
Which is, surprising how real it is.
Yeah.
Because you kind of assume in these situations they're making up a neighborhood name, they're making up places because they don't want to, I don't know, get sued maybe, I don't know, or hit a point a little too finely on the head.
Yeah.
But no, Cabrini Green is a real place and really facing gentrification.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you were saying, that's a major theme in the movie. But what Anthony McCoy is doing is he sneaks into what used to be Cabrini Green to try to learn more about this area. And there's at this point we already heard the ghost story of the Candyman.
That is the reason he goes to Cabrini Green,
right?
Is because his
girlfriend's
brother tells him the story.
Yeah, the ghost story of the Candyman, which, if you don't know, is that if you say Candyman 5 times in a mirror, he will be summoned and kill you.
But he basically surmises the plot of the first one. That's the ghost story.
Yeah.
But told from the perspective of Helen, the main character in the first one, being a psychopathic killer.
Right, because that's what they thought she was.
Yeah.
Because Helen was actually possessed. And listen, I haven't seen the first one in a long time.
Okay.
I saw the first one as a kid, okay? So
she's not possessed.
Bear with me. She's not possessed. She's haunted by the Candyman, who wants her as his bride, essentially.
Yeah. Yes.
Because the Candyman in this legend was killed for having a relationship with a white woman. He was a slave, right?
He was not he was a slave turned wealthy artist for wealthy white people. Right. That's how he met her.
Right. So he was doing portraits.
Yeah.
And they ended up falling in love. Mm-hmm. The other white people found out, weren't happy about it.
Yeah.
And killed him.
Yeah.
Right. So, in the first one, I saw it.
He's gone. What if he comes back? Oh, buddy.
Right. At least it's not a bee.
We can smell the sugar. It's this. Yeah, right. That's it. He can smell it.
Yeah. Well, so the first movie, it has to do with a reporter, right? She's a reporter. Am I getting that right? At least
she's a
book writer.
Yeah,
novelist.
No. She's I believe she's doing a thesis. I think she's in college. I think she's working on her master's.
Okay. Well, regardless, she wants to write about Cabrini Green.
Yeah.
And so that's how she gets involved. In reality, she's trying to stop the Candyman, but what it looks like is she's trying to sacrifice a baby when she's really trying to save a baby who's been taken by the Candyman.
Yeah.
At the end of it. So
Yeah.
she, at the end of the story, gets killed. She burns alive, but she saves the baby. But everyone thinks she's crazy.
Yeah.
Because she keeps getting pinned for the murders that the Candyman's doing.
Right. Because she's always around the victims.
Yeah.
And another cool thing that they do in the first one, which I found this out after going back and like reading about the first one. I don't remember the end where she kills her boyfriend and then she becomes basically like the legend.
Yeah.
She's like part of the mythos now.
She becomes part of which legends are a big part of this movie too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, cutting back to the plot, the artist finds out about that legend, decides to investigate a bit more about it to see if he can get inspired to do a new art piece, because he's going to try to be featured in this art placement that's coming up with his friends.
Yeah.
And so he does. He ends up running across a former resident of Cabrini Green, and he owns a laundromat. He just gets to know him a little bit and says, "Oh yeah, I know all about that Candyman legend, whatever." He's played by Coleman Domingo, and the character's name is William Burke.
He was fantastic.
Incredible. That's why I specifically called him out, because I thought he had a great performance.
This is also at the point where he gets stung by the bee.
Right. While he's at Cabrini Green.
Yeah.
Right. He gets stung by a bee. He goes, ah!
Dude, if I got stung by a bee while I was like trying to take pictures, that'd be it for my day. I would be so upset. I would
just cry.
Yeah, I would be I'd be like, my day's ruined. I'm going home. I'm going to go put ice on this. That's it. I'm going back. Yeah.
I'm going to paint a landscape now. I'm over it.
I'm definitely not engaging in any more ghost stories after that. My day's ruined.
Yeah.
The movie's over. Credit rolls as I walk out of Cabrini Green and to like a fucking Walgreens to get like aloe and stuff. I'm done.
The Cabrini Green Walgreens.
The Cabrini Walgreens.
So after that happens, he gets stung, but he is at that point inspired, right?
By the bee sting.
By the bee sting.
Yeah.
With anger. He's filled with anger and pain. But no, from there, correct me if I'm wrong here, but he starts to get visions of the Candyman.
He doesn't see the Candyman yet. He's only seeing, he sees them in like his dreams and stuff, but that's only alluded to.
Right.
So he starts painting them.
Yeah. He's painting his nightmares essentially.
Yeah.
But he's starting to get these visions in his sleep. And it's inspiring him to make these like really visceral and violent images.
Yeah.
So, he's starting to be consumed by it though.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I can't do anything else. I'm just doing this.
So, and this was kind of, maybe we'll talk about this at when we kind of start talking about pros and cons and whatnot.
Sure.
But he's stung by the bee, and that is implied to be an important thing that happens. Mm-hmm. Then he does the Candyman thing with what's her name?
His girlfriend?
Yeah.
Tiana Paris, who is playing Brianna Cartwright.
Brianna. I'm going to call her Barbara. I'm like, Barbara's not right. Brianna. So they're in the reflection, and they do it in the apartment. And it's this throwaway gag, because the second he does it, he shows up in the reflection. Mm-hmm. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like spotting a ghost in the background of a scene.
Yeah.
It's really creepy.
It's very well done.
Well done, yes.
But I guess my beef is, and we'll get in. I know we'll get into his importance, mm-hmm. McCoy's importance, but he's stung by the bee. It kind of feels like, to me, it didn't really matter if he did the Candyman thing. He was already there.
Yeah,
stung by the bee. He was already kind of feeling. He
was already told the story too by William Burke.
Yeah,
which I should say, the story itself, it gives us a flashback scene of what happened supposedly in Cabrini Green at the time.
Yeah.
Which was this takes place after the events of the first movie, right? This flashback?
No,
No, it's before. It was before.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's not a flashback to the Candyman we know.
yeah. It's his Candyman.
It's his
this
Candyman,
guy's Candyman.
which we're starting to cross streams here. I know.
Yeah, it gets.
Stay with us.
Yeah,
But so his recollection of who the Candyman is was, he went down to his apartment laundry, and he found a hole in the wall, and candy just started to fly out of it, and so he's like, "What's going on here?"
just starts spraying out of it.
Yeah, and so he goes and picks it up, and he sees a guy coming out, and it turns out this guy he's just a homeless guy, right?
Yeah,
And he wasn't violent. He was just trying to, kind of keep the kid calm, give him some candy. But because the police were after someone,
they were after him.
The kid thinks he's a monster and runs away, screaming, which alerts the cops outside that he's down there, and the cops proceed to murder him.
Yeah,
And so, thus, the legend of that Candyman is born.
well, there's just one piece that's missing from that. He's falsely accused of putting razor blades in candy and giving it to kids.
Yes.
So
That's why the cops
they're
are
looking
after
for
him.
Yeah,
Right. But
then they find out that he was innocent. That's why it's
Exactly.
important, because
Right.
they beat him to death,
Right.
and then you find out that he was innocent.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
So anyway, we find all that backstory out. He gets stung by the bee. He's starting to paint his visions. They do the Candyman ritual. And so from then, he gets his art placement done. He gets all of his pieces done. He puts it out in his friend's art gallery. And people are calling it really pretentious.
Yeah.
There's like an art critic there who
Shitted on.
shits on it. But
I'm
it has
not getting shitted on right to my face. Not me. No way. No.
it
how.
was rough.
It was pretty fucking brutal.
It was really mean, like unnecessarily mean.
Well, and I like that. It's this white critic telling this black artist that he's like basically aping on this idea of gentrification. It's just like she's over it, as if it's a thing you can
I get it.
And it's like, oh, and I was
Okay.
it's a really well done sequence of like, they touch on a lot of themes that are still going on, and they're pretty important, and the way that they do it, it's pretty deftly done.
And I will get to it with my general feelings on the movie, but that's what made this movie stand out to me so much. Was it could have very well been a dumb slasher movie, or even just fun, like just a fun slasher movie. But the amount of real ass like points it makes, and how, like you said, deftly it handles very heavy subjects, I found inspiring.
Yeah.
That was really good. Anyway, so he gets it out there. People aren't digging it. He has pretentious friends.
yeah.
And, essentially he gets upset. His girlfriend tries to calm him down, but he's like, no, let's just get the fuck out of here. And they leave.
He has a drunk outburst and insults people.
Yeah. I think they could have used more like context clues to show like he was getting drunk and belligerent, because he just had a beer in his hand.
Yeah, he just had one beer.
And I was like, that seems like a lot.
Yeah.
Like, show him having shots or something, or like downing a bottle before he comes in.
Yeah.
But I was like,
he has one beer, he's hanging off in the corner, he comes back and he's like, you're a fucking bitch. Fuck you. You're like, for real, bro? For real? You can't hold the one beer? You need to go home. You pretentious fuck.
So they leave, and we see the one of his kind of friends who talk shit the entire time anyway.
Yeah.
And his young apprentice that he's also boning at the same time.
Apprentice.
Yes.
My apprentice.
Do it.
Suck it.
Suck it. Unlimited power. So we cut to them at the end of the night. They're closing up, and do they do the Candyman ritual?
They do.
They do.
And that's what happens.
They do. So
we should say that his installation, his art installation, is to do the ritual. That's
Right,
why.
right.
That's how the legend spreads. Is his installation is to
there's a mirror. That's it kind of looks like almost like a medicine cabinet mirror.
Yeah.
And you open it, and inside of that is all of his brutal paintings.
Yeah.
His visceral brutal paintings, like in the dark, and it looks very moody and whatever. But the outside of it is just that glass mirror.
And like the installation is called "Say My Name," and he has this instructional thing to do the ritual.
Right.
So that's how it spreads.
Yes. So
Excuse me.
yeah, they do the ritual, and in a really cool scene that stuck with me for a while.
Yeah.
You start to see that, like, glimpses of the Candyman, and then it's a full on like Invisible Man remake style like attack where you don't see him, but you see the carnage he's causing. You only see him in the mirrors, basically.
Yeah.
And I just thought that it was really cool.
The way that they
was set
handled
up.
some of the kills like that.
Yeah.
Fucking
Incredible.
amazing.
Loved it. And the there's like a really cool atmospheric shot of, I think it's a projector projecting like Cabrini Green back in the day.
Yeah.
And like you see the hook like cut across it.
Yeah.
I thought that was like really cool, atmospheric, and like creepy.
Yeah.
Anyway, they get killed. They get killed real bad.
Honorable mention to the guy who plays the art installation guy.
Yeah.
The curator rather.
Sure.
Who was terrible in this.
Yeah.
Just awful.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that they didn't just try again when his girlfriend gets murdered in front of him and he's like, "Is this real?" And you're like, "Yeah, man. Maybe react a little differently."
Yeah, he was
Her
bad.
throat was cut and you don't know how.
Yeah.
She's bleeding profusely.
Yeah.
Maybe react a little
You
different.
sound like a Resident Evil character.
Is this real?
Is this a Jill sandwich?
And then he runs towards the door and he's like, "Fuck, fuck, fuck." and then he just gets brutally murdered, which was awesome. But
Right.
like, yeah, he was terrible. He
Yeah.
was terrible. He's the in my opinion, he's the worst part of the movie.
Yeah,
he's,
for sure.
1,000,000% the least convincing.
Yeah.
Everyone else is fantastic.
Yeah.
Including his girlfriend. She was really, I
Yeah.
thought she was really funny. The like Joy Division reference was funny, and he's
Yeah.
like, "We get it. You like Joy Division," but he was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was awful.
I agree. But anyway, he's not there for very long, so
Yeah.
he gets killed.
Thank God. Thank God that guy got murdered.
I'm happy about it myself. So, cut to the next day. Obviously, their bodies are found. I think by his girlfriend, right?
Yes,
His girlfriend
and that's
comes
what's
in the next
super
day.
traumatizing for her.
Yeah. So she comes back to the apartment. It's Anthony. It's
Fantano.
Yeah, it's his girlfriend and his girlfriend's brother.
Yeah.
And they're watching the news report of the murders, excuse me. And everyone's obviously like really traumatized by this and like, oh my God, like this happened to somebody we knew. And Anthony's like, yeah, press.
Yeah.
They said my name.
He's psyched about it. He's
Yeah.
like, "This is kind of cool, man."
Which, little duality, not duality there, but like a little hint at say my name.
Uh-huh.
And, that the importance of being called your name.
Right. And
because
he's still under the impression that like he's trying to make it. He doesn't believe that any weird shit is happening. Like they just got murdered by somebody, and they just so happened to name drop his installation, and he was like, "Sick." They said my name.
Well, and I take it at this point like he's already being corrupted.
Yes, definitely.
The
the way that he's reacting to it is like not normal.
Normal. He starts getting the dead eyes around here.
Yeah,
You're like, what's going on?
Shark eyes.
Meanwhile, his hand starts to get fucked up.
Yeah.
And we start putting two and two together at this point and saying, okay, he's being corrupted by the spirit of the Candyman.
Yeah.
Okay, so from there, let's see what happens. Is this when the art critic comes around on his piece?
Yes. So she brings him back in for an interview about the piece because now that there was a murder literally directly in front of his piece,
Right.
it puts the piece in a new light.
Right.
Now everyone's a buzz about Anthony McCoy.
A buzz?
And this is a reoccurring theme until we get to the climax of the movie, which is that he is now this on the rise artist. So that kind of informs some of the other things that happens in the movie. Is like the art critic wants to talk about him, the other curator wants to talk about him, and all kinds of. They're like now he's starting to get famous because of this.
Right.
So that's part of it.
Yeah. So he gets invited to her place to get an interview.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he goes over there, and at this point he's starting to kind of freak out.
Yeah.
Because okay, so another cool scene. They're talking. She goes off to do something.
Yeah. Powder her nose.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Take a shit.
White people.
And only white people take shits.
Only white people take shit. Only white people say they're gonna go powder their nose and then either do cocaine or take a shit.
Yeah, but never powder your nose.
I've never heard a black person say I'm gonna go powder my nose.
Yeah, that's fair.
So throw that out there. That's a white people thing.
I'm glad you did.
Even if they're gonna take shit.
Yeah, I think honestly it's the best policy. So you just gotta say you're gonna take a shit.
Yeah, just say you're gonna take a shit.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather hear that than like I'm gonna go do cocaine.
So you're saying even if you're just gonna go do cocaine, you'd rather her just say, "I'm gonna go take a shit."
No. I'm saying I
She
would
comes
rather.
back really energetic.
I would rather.
It's like,
honesty.
yeah, I feel like that sometimes too.
I would rather honesty. I'm saying
Okay.
like if a girl is like I'm gonna. Well, no. You know what? I would rather honesty. If she's gonna.
So
go
you're
do,
on a date and she just goes, "I'm gonna go do some coke real quick." You sit right there. I'll be back.
Well, I would rather that than for her to come back and now she's all fucking wired and shit. And I'm like, did she go in the bathroom and do coke? Also, why did she need to do coke?
Did you know I'm the greatest person of all time?
Exactly. What did she need to do that for? Yeah, no, I would prefer. Yeah, honestly, I would love to know the direction of a date that. Halfway through, she's like, I'm going to go do coke. And then she comes back and she's like, I'm all done. Now it's like, I would honestly be interested in the rest of that date.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not leaving. If she tells me she's going to the bathroom, she's like, I'm going to go powder my nose. Wink, wink. I'm going to go do coke. You sit right there and don't go anywhere. I'm like, you better fucking believe I'm not moving. I cannot wait for you to get back.
It's going to make great content.
No, seriously. I mean, at the very least, it's content.
Well, you got to respect her more, right?
For sure. Are you kidding me?
I mean,
1,000,000%. She gets my
brutal
respect.
honesty, if nothing, elicits respect.
Yes.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yeah.
I'm on board. Kind of. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's the kind of chick that might. I mean, the coke thing that's gonna be a problem.
Maybe.
And that's something that we're gonna have to talk about.
Could be. Yeah.
It depends on how often she's doing it. You know,
Sure.
some people have a little fun on the weekends. You know, a little booger sugar.
Who are we to judge?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who amongst us? Me, I haven't. Never,
me
but
either.
who amongst y'all?
Yeah, but
not amongst us, but who amongst y'all?
If you do it as a recreational drug and you're not like hooked and stuff,
yeah,
have
you're just
fun,
having
whatever.
fun, do your thing,
Whatever,
have a
man.
good time, you know.
Hey, we drink beer
Exactly.
on a podcast.
Who the fuck? Who are we to judge?
We're not.
You know?
We're none to judge.
We are none to judge.
And with that, he's looking in a mirror. He ends up wandering and looking in a mirror, like a floor-to-ceiling mirror, actually. And lo and behold, who does he see in the mirror?
Who does he see?
He sees the Candyman.
He sees the Candyman.
But it's not the Candyman we know. It's not.
No.
Is it Tony Todd?
Tony Todd.
Tony Todd. It's
Tony
not-
Todd, the legend.
It's not,
Tony Todd.
It's not Tony Todd. It's the person we saw in the flashback.
Yeah.
From earlier on. And he has the hook on his hand.
Yeah.
Or hook for a hand, I should say.
Yeah.
And he's got the jacket on. He's the Candyman.
He is the Candyman.
And but he's literally Anthony's reflection.
Yeah.
So it's very well choreographed kind of like movement thing of him being like, what is happening?
Well, also alluding to this isn't just the Candyman is back, but the Candyman is trying to possess him.
Yeah.
It's a possession. It's not just he's out here murdering folks. And because the original movie was he was back and he was upset that his legend was not being respected, basically.
Right.
Like the mythos of the Candyman, the way that it continues, this evil spirit needs to be respected. And that was the point. So he comes back to start murdering people.
It needs to be told.
Yes.
And I think that's an important link to some of the themes happening with the end of this movie.
Absolutely. And people need to know who he is, why he is what he is, and also to fear his legend. That's the point. So he comes back and starts murdering so that people remember that. And then he falls in love with Helen, which I get. She was hot. the actress who played Helen Lyle, Oscar nominated. She got an Oscar nomination for Sideways, the Paul Giamatti wine movie. Yeah,
much further along in their career. Wow.
Yep.
Good for her.
I was just doing my wiki as one does.
Hey.
Yeah, found that and I was like,
imagine what this podcast would be if we just did some reresearch.
Imagine where we would be.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
okay. Yeah.
That's part of it. Is that like that's the original concept. Now this concept is a possession thing, which is different. Which I could see why some like older fans were like, "This is not what it was."
Right.
This is a little different.
And if you're watching a Candyman movie, you kind of show up for Tony Todd.
I think we're gonna get to that later, but
yeah.
I will just say, just drop that little tidbit. A little disappointed that he only made a cameo. I thought for sure that I wanted more Tony Todd. He's the fucking man.
So good.
And I just wanted
so
more Tony Todd.
Yeah.
I mean, even he says 2 words.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so good.
Yeah.
I just
we'll get there.
Yeah.
Put a lid on it. Anyway, so
Put a lid on it.
he sees himself as the Candyman. Obviously freaked out. Cut to her coming out of the bathroom or wherever she was, and he looks back at the mirror and it's him again. And so we kind of think, okay, well that weird trip's over. It's fine. And then it cuts to far away, like a
it starts. The camera pans out from her
that's
apartment.
Right, that's such a good shot too.
It's a really good shot.
Slowly pans out, very slowly, further and further away.
Can I say it's my favorite shot in the movie? I mean, it really is. I made a mental note that it's my favorite shot in the movie.
So good, such a good shot.
Yeah.
So it starts going further and further away. And you see just like in the smallest like little cube you can possibly think of in the frame, she gets stabbed and pulled across the window.
Yeah.
The like wall sized window in her plush apartment, and you see this blood streak just.
Yeah, man, she gets her shit rocked.
Yeah. So the Candyman's there.
Yeah. It's fucking dope.
Yeah. Okay, and from there, let's see, where do we go from there? I know he gets invited to the dinner party.
So he was already invited to the party. He was supposed to go to the party
from the interview because his girlfriend's like originally kind of upset that he can't make it, right? But he's like, I'll do the interview and I'll come right over.
Yeah.
And so he does come over, but he's clearly shooken up.
Yeah.
And so he gets there. He's acting weird. He's really edgy, like not edgy. He's on edge. It's really on
fucking
edge.
edgelord.
Yeah, it's strange.
Yeah.
And so he ends up freaking out at the party, and he runs away from there. Right.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what's wrong with this guy? And where's he go from there?
He goes to see he goes home. He goes home and he starts freaking out. She leaves.
Right.
They finish the dinner. She meets him back at the apartment and he's freaking out. So she gets home and she sees the paintings of all of the past Candymen.
That's the first time she sees that.
Yeah,
because he's been busy. He's been busy working, like doing his paintings. She's left him to do his thing.
Yeah.
She comes back and they're covered.
Yeah.
And she unveils them and is like, "What have you been doing?"
Right. And she's like, "What is all of this?" And he's like, "You're not supposed to see all of this." At this point, he is now realizing that something supernatural is going on.
Yeah.
So he tells her, "I fucked up."
Yeah.
And she starts to do the Candyman thing to disprove that it's not it's all in your head. He breaks the glass. She freaks out.
Yeah.
Because,
sure, as you would.
Yeah.
And at this point, she thinks he's having like a mental breakdown.
Yes.
Like,
which, by the way, we didn't mention, but parallels her father, who she discovers he kills himself. He jumps out of a window, and he was also an artist.
Yeah.
This is important for her story. He jumps out. She comes in. It's a flashback scene.
We get another flashback.
Yeah, and she's like, "What's up, Pop? What are you doing?" He's like, "I bet you didn't know your father could fly." And he jumps out the window and kills himself. So she saw her dad kill herself. That's a pretty important theme that we're wrestling with.
Yeah, mental health.
So now she is with another mentally struggling artist.
She fears the worst.
Yeah, and she dips it.
Yeah, she goes to her brother.
Yeah.
Talks to him about everything that's been happening.
Yeah.
And they decide that they're going to come back to the apartment, take her stuff, so she can get out of the apartment.
Yeah.
And he can just get whatever
But he's
he needs.
gone at this point. At this point, he has gone to see his mother.
Yes.
And now that's where...
Yes.
So his mother has been alluded to throughout the movie.
Right.
We don't see her. He's banging on an apartment door. She opens up the door, and who do we see?
Vanessa Williams.
From the original movie.
Anne Marie McCoy was her name in the original movie.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks great.
She looks... I'm glad you said that.
She looks
I'm glad you said
incredible.
that. Because I thought the same thing, and I was like... She looks amazing. She's almost 60 at this point. And no, she's 59 now. She looks amazing.
She looks like they de-aged her.
Yeah. Dude, she looks...
It's almost distracting.
Yes.
How good she looks.
Exactly.
For her age.
Dude, it's
incredible.
like, how can she be his mom? He could be dating
Yes.
her. She looks great. She looks so good.
It's incredible.
I was as soon as I saw it, I was looking at the cast and I was looking at pictures and I was like, I was on Google going, dude, she looks incredible. Yeah. And then she pops up on the movie and I was like,
oh my God.
She looks so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, she looks
almost
amazing.
distractingly good for her age.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get the reveal that our artist, Anthony, the entire time was that kid.
Yes.
In the original
from the first movie
that was
the
saved,
baby who was
abducted by the Candyman and then saved by what's her face?
Helen.
So yeah, there's an obvious connection there, and I mean, very similar to like the Nightmare on Elm Street series, where it's like there's this legend that we as parents have tried to ignore and tried to forget about and tried to kind of blank out of the history books in order to stop it from happening again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they did in Cabrini Green, which is
it worked.
It did work, but eventually it was unearthed again.
Yeah.
Almost fatefully by the kid that was involved in the beginning of it all.
Yeah.
So, she's apologizing, saying, I'm sorry I didn't tell you the truth. We were trying to hide it from you so you didn't have to deal with this sort of trauma in your life. Another theme, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But
we discovered that he brought the Candyman back.
Yeah.
That he had been dormant for 30 years.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to him, he has now restarted these killings.
Right. Digging into it has brought him back.
Yeah. We're doing the Candyman thing, doing the mirror thing, and digging in, and fate has brought him back to Cabrini Green.
Yeah.
The other thing that gets revealed is he keeps saying, I was born on the south side of Chicago. he finds out when he goes to the hospital
Right.
that he was actually born in Cabrini Green,
Yeah.
or in the hospital closest to Cabrini Green.
Yeah, I did a little research on Cabrini Green, the real one. It's in near north side Chicago.
So there you go. I mean, that is a ways away from where he thought
Right.
he was born.
Right.
And so that also starts to allude to the fact that, like, oh, he's more important to this myth than he realizes.
And at this point, like, he's full tilt, like, he's losing it.
Yes, the reason he went to the hospital is because his arm looks like shit.
Yeah.
He's all fucked up.
I mean, he's getting, like, the little welts, the little...
Yeah.
Oh, it's so
It
gross.
looks like a honeycomb all over his... Yeah, it's all fucked up.
it's disgusting.
Nasty. Yeah, it was gross. It was really nasty.
Yeah.
I thought when he was picking at it that he... And I'm a little disappointed that they didn't do this. I thought he was picking at the wound, and then he was going to, like, leave DNA behind when when Candyman murders the critic.
I see. Okay.
But no, they used that as a device to wrap his hand and start making allegories to
the allusion to the hook.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is good too.
Sure.
But I thought I don't know.
Well,
Anyway, that's
you know,
just me.
his hand could have, like, literally fallen off instead of
That
what
would
they
have been
did.
instead of what they did was a little.
Anyway,
But
so
let's get to it because we're at 47 minutes.
Okay.
So let's get
sorry.
because we need to give our
I'm sorry.
thoughts.
Okay, look. From here on, I'm going to speed round. Okay, forgive me. So he finds out the information. He runs back to Cabrini Green, right?
Uh-huh.
And to confront
Burke.
William Burke. Rice. Right. I said Rice.
Rice.
To confront him. And how does he get him? How does he get him?
They don't show.
It
So
just-
he goes back to Cabrini Green, and at this point he has basically, he's resigned himself to his fate.
His fate,
He fucked up, and
Right.
so he just goes back to the neighborhood. At this point, he's in like a fugue state.
Yeah.
And Burke just snatches him up.
Yeah.
They don't show that. He's just there in the church with him.
Because Burke is the only one who really knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And he goes to him basically, for protection, you could say.
Yeah.
Anyway, so his girlfriend, Brianna, is worried about him, obviously. And ends up... How does she know to go to Brianna?
She finds the pen. He's talked about the laundromat. He says Burke at the laundromat. She finds the pen. That gives her the motivation to go to Cabrini Green,
Yes.
find the laundromat, find Burke.
Yes. And
And
so
then-
she goes to do that. She ends up getting snatched up.
Yeah.
She wakes up, tied up.
Yeah.
And it turns out this Burke fella, not such a good guy.
Not the greatest dude.
Not such a good guy. His own mind is warped. He wants to bring back the Candyman.
Yeah.
He almost like worships the Candyman in a way.
Yeah. So like he basically the way that it's framed is that he wants people to continue to respect the legend of the Candyman, and he wants this. They keep alluding to the gentrification and that
Sure.
like there's no respect for the
they're
neighborhood. And,
forgetting.
like these people, these white people who are coming in and destroying these neighborhoods just to build them back up. They don't respect the myth, the legend of Candyman. They don't even know who he is. They
Right.
don't, nobody's heard these stories.
It's bad for them to even acknowledge there were murders there.
Yeah.
They just want to demolish and build up.
Right. And so his idea is like if we can get another Candyman, we can continue the story, the
Right.
myth, the legend.
So his entire drive is to create a new Candyman.
He's trying to create a new Candyman.
Right.
I guess he starts to see what's happening with Anthony, and he's like, well, and he also, I don't know if he knows that he's the baby.
I don't know either.
I don't remember hearing a line that alluded to him knowing that he's the baby.
But again, all of this is very like...
No, never mind. He does know he's the baby. He does say there's something he says that's like
Yes.
fate brought him back to
Right,
the
right,
neighborhood.
right.
Now he does know that he's the
Right,
baby.
right. Essentially, he's been waiting for him to come back.
Yeah.
'Cause he'd
I'm
been
glad
there
we
the
said that
entire
because
time.
that's pretty important.
It is, it
With
is,
people
it
who
is.
watch the movie, be like,
Good-
you missed a huge part of that.
Good catch. Good catch. Yeah. So anyway, they're tied up. Burke ends up cutting off Anthony's hand
Yeah.
and putting the hook
Yeah.
in there in order to continue the legacy of Candyman.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, at this time, Anthony's entire like left side, he's like Two-Faced
it's donezo,
at this point.
Yeah.
His arm is all fucked up. His face is getting fucked up. Like it looks like an infection spreading.
Yeah.
That looks like a honeycomb, and it's really gross looking.
It's very gross.
Very disgusting. So there's still a semblance of Anthony in there, though.
Yeah.
He's still somewhat conscious.
Uh-huh.
And you can tell he kind of realizes what's happening out of his own control.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's see, help me out. At that point,
so from that point, he turns him into Candyman physically.
right?
She escapes. He chases after her, Burke, and she murders Burke with the pen that she freed herself with.
Yes.
She stabs him to death.
Right. But why are the cops on the way?
Burke had called the cops and was like, "Oh my God, the fucking guy you're looking
Yes.
for!" Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
In order to find him and them to make the Candyman legend happen.
So he is basically creating this legend of another black man being gunned down by police. He
Right.
said
He's setting it up.
He knows that this is what's about to happen.
Right,
Like
right.
that's what they're going to do. They're going to storm the hood. They're going to find this guy
Right.
with the hook, and he's been murdering
Blame
white
him
people,
for the murders that have
and
been happening.
they're just going to gun him
It's
down.
going to happen again,
Yeah.
and therefore the Candyman legend will continue.
Right.
But
And that's what happens.
yes. So she escapes, kills him with the pen that was alluded to earlier in the movie, which is very good, awesome. And the cops come back, murder him in cold blood.
In cold blood, he's laying down on the ground,
Right.
defenseless, and they
Yeah.
shoot him.
They do the classic stop resisting, bah, 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 bah.
Yeah.
Mag dump, and she somehow comes out unscathed.
Yeah.
At least physically.
Yeah.
And so she's in the back of the cop car. She, the cop in there is interrogating her essentially and saying like, "Tell us what happened.
No, he's saying
You're going to be involved if you don't."
So what he's doing is he is saying this is two ways that we can play this. Your boyfriend stood up and attacked my officer, or you were an accomplice. Either
Right.
way, you're either going to jail or well, no, that's it. You're going to jail,
Either
or
you're going to
you're
jail.
going to or you're going to jail. No, you're going to jail, or you can be free. How do you want to play this?
Right,
Your
right.
boyfriend attacked my officer.
Yeah.
You're going to lie.
Be our witness, or-
we're going to
yeah.
lie, and you're going to jail for the rest of your life.
Right.
So at that point is when she finally goes,
All right, fuck it.
"It's Candyman time."
So she goes, "Can I see myself in the mirror real quick?" And he goes, "What?" Okay, and puts the rear view mirror down a little bit so she can see herself. And she does 4 Candymans. And then he looks at himself and goes, "Candyman?"
Yeah.
And lo and behold, the Candyman appears, wreaks havoc on all the cops.
Yeah.
Unlocks the door. She comes out. That's when we finally get our Tony Todd cameo.
Yeah.
Where the bees surround him. It comes out, and what does he say?
Tell everyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he says. Tell
Yeah.
everyone.
Yep. And that's it.
And then credits.
Yeah. Well, no. Then we get one of the most affecting scenes I've seen in a movie this year, which are the shadow puppets.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Incredibly, and honestly, maybe the reason why I want to include this in our series, mostly, other than, it's a good movie overall, but the last segment of this, it can be a short on its own, and it ends it on such an interesting, like, deep note that shows all of the Candymen that have come before, which in this world is essentially Candyman exists now as a vengeful spirit for the unjust treatment of black people.
Yeah.
Like that's what he is. And
Yeah.
to see, I mean, some of these stories true.
I looked it up. The first 3 stories that the puppets do are real stories.
Right.
One is that child, the one who's riding his bike, is a real story about a kid who was accused of killing a white woman or white girl.
White girl, yeah.
Sentenced to death. And then, obviously, years later, they were like, oh, that was a wrongful death. They just, no shit. The one guy was dragged by that pickup truck. They found that guy, and they, he, that one was really fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was really fucked up. Yeah, those 3 stories are real.
Yeah.
I'll go through the details.
Yeah, please don't. But that's the thing, though, is like, upon finishing the movie, I'm like, that was a good like fable, you know? And then watching those, like, I don't know about you, but like my heart sank watching the little vignettes, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I that's why I couldn't get through explaining it, because it got me emotional. I was because at first I was like, these feel real. Yeah, and then I looked it up, and then I looked at those. I read the stories, and it got me even more emotional because like
I had known the story already about the kid. I had read about that in the past, and seeing that depicted, I was like, oh, that's what this is going for. Yeah, I get it now. Yeah, and I mean, just watching. I feel like that credit sequence is sort of a masterpiece of its own. It is in the way that like like the first 10 minutes of Up are like really effective. Yeah, I feel like this last like credit sequence is its own thing. You know, it can stand alone as its own like short film in a way. Yeah, you know, so I think it ended in the strongest way it possibly could. Yeah, let alone with like the Tony Todd feature and all that stuff. Like, was really cool as like a fan, but then getting into that more serious, real aspect of this story kind of hit home in a way that didn't feel exploitive and didn't feel just tacked on. It felt true to the themes that they were trying to tell the entire time. Yeah, which is why I think it works. So yeah, that's how it caps off. And how do you feel about Candyman 2021?
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed by the movie. I was very surprised, having finally watched it, hearing some of the things that people were saying about it, people that I know who weren't really digging it. And I think it's because they were looking for like a straight up slasher horror movie and weren't really looking into the commentary of the film, which is funny because those people missed the commentary of the first film.
Right.
And so,
which was there.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it was there. Yeah, it was definitely there. I mean, not as overt. And I guess I could see why some people would think that this one is a little too
preachy.
Preachy's like a word that I don't want to use, but it is kind of preachy. It's hard to balance social commentary and a horror movie. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. Well, horror as a genre generally is one that's used to exploitation. Yeah. Especially people of color, you know? Yeah.
It's hacky and it's but that's the charm of
and I did find it refreshing that and when we get to another movie on my list, we can talk more about this, but the fact that it turns it on its head, the traditional conventions of, the black guy dying first.
Yeah, it's only white people that die in the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
We missed the
except for Anthony. But,
sure, but he's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
But excuse me. Mind you, we missed an entire scene of...
Oh, we glossed over the girls, the high school girls. That's right. That's right.
Which goes to say was an unnecessary scene.
It was, yes, it was. It meant nothing.
Yeah, it felt almost like a web movie that they would put out as a promotion for the movie.
Yeah.
Because it had just nothing to do with the narrative, really.
I guess the only thing that you can say is that it adds to the legend of the Say My Name piece.
Sure. How it's spreading.
How it's spreading amongst the city.
Sure.
Yeah, that even like little white high school girls are doing it. I did really appreciate that, like, it leans so much into we're only killing white people in this movie that, like, there's a black girl that comes into the bathroom and she's like in the stall, and obviously it's super traumatizing for all that shit to happen to her. But she survives, and all the little white girls. Oh, I don't know if you caught this. It's like 6 girls doing the Candyman thing, and then the only ethnic person is like, "Fuck this." The Asian girl's like, girl goes, "I'm out."
No.
Fucking dude, I had to pause the movie. I was laughing so hard that she was like, "No."
I'm glad you caught that, because I thought the same thing. I was like, yeah,
it was so good.
That's what I'm saying. Like, even Brianna, when
her
brother's starting, like, you want to hear a ghost story,
and she goes like, "No, nope, don't want to hear it." And then when she's looking for Anthony, she goes to the laundromat.
Yeah,
what is going on with this fucking thing? Oh, it's loose. That's why. There's a moment where she's looking for him. She opens the door to the attic of the laundromat.
Yeah.
No lights, and she goes, nope. And closes the door and just keeps looking for him in the fucking broad daylight. And I was like, man. Because no one's, especially black people, are not going down there.
Absolutely not.
I loved it. I love some of that shit, man. Some of that, I was like, man, this is fucking spot on, dude. This is spot on. And that's the kind of writing that I think you get with Jordan Peele.
Sure.
He I think he's sometimes beholden to the genre, but I think what makes him so effective is that he comes from a perspective of, you obviously can't do it. You obviously can't make a super hyper realistic horror movie, because a hyper realistic horror movie is someone going, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah.
I'm calling the police.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit in my kitchen. I'm going to turn on all the lights. And if the lights go out, I'm going to leave. I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to, like, it, you know, real people don't do the things that people do in horror movies.
Well, and that comes into play too with Brianna's character, when she just stabs the hell out of him with that pen.
Right.
You know, like, normally you'd picture her running and screaming until she trips and falls, and then suddenly the bad guy's on top of her.
Yeah.
You know, no, she takes her opportunity. She doesn't just go and run away. No, she stabs and stabs and stabs until he's dead.
She is 100% the realest character in the movie.
She's capable, which is rare for especially a female character in a movie. A horror movie, I should say.
Yeah.
So I found that really refreshing.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, it could still work as a horror movie without those conventions. You know, and in fact, it was a refreshing turn for the genre.
I think definitely there were some things I watched it by myself late at night. Usually I'm a pussy and I get creeped out really easily. This movie wasn't scary, quote unquote.
Sure.
It was creepy. Mm-hmm. It was a good thriller, but it wasn't scary.
Sure.
And I appreciate that they did certain things that it worked from an artistic standpoint. That it wasn't horrifying. There's some movies where the point is to disturb you in a way that it sits with you for a really long time, but it's the imagery that sits with you.
Yeah.
With this movie, what sits with you is the social commentary.
Right. And which I was going to say is, like, in a weird way, I found that last, 5-minute segment of the credit sequence, like, more horrifying than anything that was in the movie before it. You know, like, that scared me more than anything else, because it's real.
Yeah.
You know? And even if the story itself is not 100% accurate, things like that have happened, of that nature.
Well, I mean, shit, from 2019 to 2022. I mean, it's the stuff that they allude to in the movie. It just it's very arresting imagery. With basically, they're saying that these injustices that happen to black people happen all the time, and these vengeful spirits are created because of these injustices.
Sure.
And at the end, there is that scene where, in the puppet show, where they all become Candymen, right? And they
see
all
them
exact
all-
their revenge, right?
Yeah.
And then they rise up, and then another crowd rises up behind them, and another, and another, and another, and it becomes like this infinite.
You see, it's endless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that part was the most affecting to me.
Sent a shiver down my spine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's just a perpetual thing that continues to happen. And I think that the cop killing Anthony in the end was a tad bit hacky, because he was laying on the ground in her arms, and he just runs in and just like unloads on a guy laying on the ground.
Sure.
But I say that because that was my initial thought, and then the more that I thought about it, the more that, like, I don't know, sorry to get into like a real story, but there was that story about the guy who was the caretaker of the guy who was schizophrenic, and he was not having a good day, and the cops get called, and this guy's out there not having a good day, and the caretaker, it's a black man, he sits down, he lays on the ground with his hands up, and he's like, I understand what I know what you guys are here for. I just want to let you know, I'm his caretaker.
He's schizophrenic.
This is the situation, and they still shoot him like 3 or 4 times while he's laying on the ground with his hands in the air. They still shoot him. So you can, my initial thought is that that's a hacky thing to do in the movie, but it actually happens in real life, and so it's hard. When I see critics who are like, it's kind of exploitive, and it's like, it's like, but is it though?
Is it right?
Because these things are actually happening.
Well, and you say that, and there's a character named Brianna, and you think
Breonna Taylor.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So
it's just like, man, how on the nose and how hacky is it really when these things are actually happening to people? And this is just a reflection of those things, as opposed to a metaphor or some kind of allegory or something. It's just, we're retelling these in the frame of this horror movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say, from a moviegoer standpoint, taking some of the I guess some of the point of the movie away and just looking at it as a film, the final third of the movie, super rushed. This is one of the few times.
Are we getting into cons now? Pros, cons? We getting into cons? We want to get into cons? Have we said enough about pros yet?
That's a good point.
Just run down the list of pros real quick.
Sure. I thought Yahya Abdul-Mateen, as usual, was great.
No, he's incredible.
I thought he was a great lead for this.
Waiting for his big movie.
Yeah.
Because the guy's been on fire.
Sure. Yeah.
Everything
he
he's
keeps
done.
getting work, as he should. And, I think he was great in this.
He does this great thing where he's stone cold for, like, the majority of it. He's, like, the coolest fucking guy on the planet. And then when he needs to, he rises to the occasion emotionally.
Yeah.
Which I think he's fantastic at.
Yeah.
You
Agreed.
can see a lot of that in the Watchmen series.
Oh,
he's
yeah,
fantastic
of
in that.
course.
And then when he needs to,
I would be remiss to not mention the Watchmen series.
Yeah.
Go watch it if you're a Watchmen fan.
Yeah.
Please. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm going to rewatch that soon, actually.
Yeah.
It was so good. But yeah, okay. So he's a major plus. I mean, even in that cameo, de-aged Tony Todd is just so,
that's just so good, man.
Good. Oh my
so good.
God, he's incredible. A horror icon.
I appreciate how they used the new Candyman to tell the story of, like, this basically generational trauma, which I thought was a fantastic way to do that.
Yeah.
But I just kind of wish it was still Tony Todd, man.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, I just and that maybe that's nostalgia, but I just really think it's just Tony Todd's so good.
Yeah.
I wanted to see more of him.
Well, I think it's tough logistically because obviously Tony Todd's an older man now. They couldn't de-age him the entire time, probably with the budget they had, and I think that's probably where that decision came out of.
But I honestly, though, how much de-aging was necessary. Really? Like, do you think watching it, would you have been ripped out of the movie if he was older than what he looked in 1992?
No, and I think they could have shot around it because
Yeah, he could have been in the shadows. Yeah, he could.
You hear his voice.
Yeah.
I think that would have been cool. But I think for the story that that Nia DaCosta especially was trying to tell, they needed another Candyman in there. You know, to make it this
I just
thing.
think that it's kind of unfair to the actor who plays the new Candyman because Tony Todd gets so much screen time in the first one.
Sure.
He is allowed to be an iconic villain.
He's like Pinhead, like he is Candyman.
Yeah. And if you are, let's say they wanted to turn this into a series.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that Yaya would be the new Candyman,
Sure.
but the guy playing Sherman, the 70s Candyman,
Yeah.
he's so caked in makeup from
Bees.
the beating that he's so caked in bees and honey, you can't even recognize the guy.
Yeah.
You can't see his face as much as you'd
Sure.
like to. He doesn't get the chance to be an icon. He's just used as a device.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I think he was fantastic for what he was asked to do. But if they were ever to do another Candyman, like, I don't want to see him again because I don't even know. Like, he's not an iconic character. Tony Todd is an icon. He's a great actor. And so
Sure.
what he does in the first one, he's iconic in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yaya is great in the first one. And if they were to do another one, if they were to do a series and use him as the Candyman,
Yeah.
he'd be... I think he could reach the heights of Tony
yeah,
Todd.
Of course.
And so I just think I think they kind of it's unfair to the actor who plays Sherman to be caked in this makeup and to only get these glimpses of screen time. And he does a lot with the screen time.
Oh
that
yeah,
he's
he's
given.
a super tragic character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Very sad, very tragic character. And he does what he can with the screen time that he's given. I just think it's unfair when you look at the grand scheme of
Not
things.
give him the FaceTime.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if they do a sequel, they can kind of, refigure it so that he is his regular face.
Yeah.
As the character.
He just doesn't get any creepy monologues.
Take the
he doesn't
makeup
get
off.
any No, he's basically a zombie in the movie. He's just a zombie.
Yeah, and I could. This is my pitch. Okay.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm listening.
For a sequel,
Do it.
you do Candymen,
Candymen.
and it's like all of the Candymans.
The army of Candymen.
Yeah, and make it almost like a 13 Ghosts type situation.
Ooh, okay.
Where they're all like doing their own thing,
Uh-huh.
but they're all these vengeful spirits.
Yeah.
And
How do you combat 4 or 5 different vengeful Candymen? People didn't even know what to do with one of
I
them.
don't know if you can.
I
I don't know if you can. It's a wave of vengeful spirits. So I think that'd be good. I think that'd be good commentary.
Yeah.
I think that'd be interesting. Interesting take.
Yeah. Any more pros?
No. None.
None.
Not
This movie
one.
Fucking no.
No. Had really good direction by Nia DaCosta. And I am now a bit more excited about the Marvels because of this. Because I thought she had a really good eye. Like we said, some really good shots that stick with you. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons to watch this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to cons.
Let's do it.
Okay. Last about third of the film, super rushed.
Mhm.
This is one of the first times I will say I kind of wish this story was told over a series instead of a movie. I think it could have done with a bit more extrapolation. A little bit more of a slow burn of our hero suddenly getting possessed and like a slower burn of him kind of turning into the Candyman.
Mm-hmm.
And a bit more backstory, a bit more time to flesh out these characters. Because, I mean, especially William Burke, his turn is like within milliseconds.
Yes.
Like sudden and out of nowhere.
I agree with you 1,000,000% on that one. That he goes from being basically the like truth teller sage of the story to immediately he's the villain, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
That was too jarring of a turn to make sense. That was
Right.
too much. Yeah,
Right,
I agree with that.
So that's I would say my biggest gripe with the movie is that it rushes itself in that last at least quarter
Yeah.
of the movie. But other than that, I think it did pretty well.
I think there's some stuff with the social commentary that's a little too lackadaisical, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
The stuff about gentrification is smart, and I understand what they're doing. I mean, even in Orlando, where we're seeing that with some neighborhoods,
Sure.
and I mean it's happening all over the country, and I think that they allude to it, but I don't think they do a good enough job of really showing us the devastation of gentrification when it comes to these communities.
Sure. Yeah.
Because when we are introduced to
Cabrini Green.
we are introduced to this, basically it looks abandoned,
Yeah.
and then
It's behind like fences.
and he has to jump a fence to even get to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then homie who runs the laundromat, Burke, he's like, yo, what's up? And he's like in the middle of, but you're like, wait,
He's the only person there.
right.
Yeah.
So then you get to the laundromat, and then there's people who are washing their clothes in the laundromat, and you're like, where do they live?
Yeah.
Because that project looks like it's ready to be demolished.
Yeah.
So what the fuck it's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
And I think that they could have done a better job of illustrating gentrification literally,
Yeah.
as opposed to talking about it. They talk about it well enough that you understand why it's a bad thing, but it would be better to physically see it.
Sure.
See what they're talking about.
Well, maybe have some more residents of Cabrini Green.
Yeah.
The fact that he's the only one is kind of weird.
It is weird. It's
Yeah.
weird, and it also it gives this creepy, lonely, desperate vibe.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of the point, but at the same time, then don't talk about gentrification.
Sure.
If you are trying to allude to the fact that part of the problem is these communities being destroyed for white gain, don't allude to that if the other theme is desperation and loneliness and all these other things.
Yeah.
You can't do both.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Or you could point it out by like having one of those laundromat patrons being like, yeah, me and Burke are the only two that are left here.
Yes.
I remember from
exactly.
the 80s. I
That's
used to be
all
here.
you need. That's all you need is one other character to kind of allude to, I look around and I see everybody moving out or getting kicked out or blah, blah, blah. Just just one other guy to kind of let you know what's happening here.
Yeah.
Because, that critic was kind of, she was a fucking bitch, but it's like, like what she's saying is like, you are dealing with a thing that has been touched on a million times before. What are you trying to say about gentrification?
Sure.
And it kind of is a reflection of the movie itself. What are you trying to say about gentrification? You can acknowledge that it's a bad thing. Every time that I talk to white liberals, we all acknowledge that gentrification is a bad thing.
Right.
What are we doing about it?
Yeah.
What can we do about it? Is there anything that we can do about it?
Right.
You know what I mean? Those are the questions that need to be asked in 2021, 2022 is like, we all know that it's a bad thing.
Right.
What can we do about it?
Yeah.
So this movie is like,
Or at very least, why is it bad?
right.
Truly, why is it bad?
And we only get that. We get this short.
It's a
clip.
throwaway line.
Yeah.
It's a throwaway line about why it's good and why it's bad.
Right.
Very simplified, very, very light.
Yeah.
But-
and then we move on to the horror aspects
right,
of the movie.
exactly.
So it's like I appreciate the attempt,
Sure.
but sometimes it's like less is more.
Well,
you could have just stuck with the Candyman stuff. You could have stuck with the injustices that black men face You could have just stuck with that. The
Right.
gentrification stuff was like felt a little shoehorned after the fact because
It's a
you're like,
little extra on
yeah,
top.
because at the end of the day, you're like, okay, so what did that really have to do with the movie itself?
Right.
Nothing.
You know, I think it may have just been because that was the reality of what was happening in real life.
Yeah.
That they just felt the need to address it. But at the same time, you're right. I feel like it may have been a stronger movie if they would have stuck with that theme of like, the Candyman is an allegory of trauma.
Yeah.
And violence in this culture.
Yeah. So and that could have got us back to Tony Todd because
Right.
we don't need to have a literal thing happen if he is a metaphor for black trauma.
Sure.
We don't need to have a literal
But
thing.
I will say, I think, as a non-black person, it is more effective that we do see that this is a story told not just in the late 1800s with Tony Todd's character. It is one that has happened time and time again, and in our given timeline, destined to happen time and time again for generations.
Right.
Like to show the generational trauma, I think in a literal form was effective, at least for me.
Yeah.
So-
And no, it is very effective the way that they did it. So I I'm just trying to figure out a way to get Tony Todd more screen time.
Of course, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I just think that the gentrification stuff is kind of it's too throwaway to
Too
be
lightly
important.
touched on.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I think that's a whole. I mean, the movie is not that long, and back to your point, they could have spent more time fleshing out the possession aspect.
Mm-hmm.
They could have spent more time fleshing out like what Anthony has to do with all of this stuff and everything. They could have just annexed all of the gentrification stuff to spend more time on his possession.
Yeah.
So you get a better balanced horror movie with social commentary.
Well, sure, and make it a thing of like once you are given that history, you're given that information of trauma of your family or your entire race, your history. Once you're hit to that knowledge, what do you do with it?
Right.
Make it a story about that.
Right.
Do you go immediately into violence, or do you try to do something with that?
Right.
That is, more productive or whatnot.
That's a good question because
You know?
Anthony was never even given the choice.
No.
He grew up. Once he learned his role in this, it was a foregone conclusion. He was never even given a chance
He was
to make
destined
the
to be
choice.
the Candyman.
Yeah.
Which may be the story. That may be the
Maybe
idea
that-
behind
yeah,
it.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. You are destined
It's
to be
the
the
society
Candyman.
that we're living in.
Right.
It's just
There's no way around it.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice.
But then what are the answers? You can't just keep asking questions without. But I guess you could.
Well, if the story is about this hopelessness, then yeah, that could be it. Unfortunately.
Yeah, but what a sad.
The answer is, and it is sad. I agree. The answer is, you must keep the legend of the Candyman alive, because the Candyman is the history, the real history of violence and injustice in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the story that will ultimately keep you safe.
Right. Right.
You need to keep that legacy alive, or else we're gonna, forget and repeat history,
Right.
or not truly find justice. I mean, there's no true justice at this point, but find some semblance of justice for the history that happened in this country.
Yeah.
So I think that's really what you do with it.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No. That makes sense.
Yeah. Hence Say My Name. Obviously a call for a lot of the protests that happened in recent years.
Right.
So, that being said, how many bottle caps?
How many bottle caps do we give Candyman? I would say not as scary as I would hope it would be. Some themes that I thought were left a little unexplored, some themes that could have been more explored, and that that curator was just so terrible that I have to dock it at least a quarter of a point.
Sure.
I'm gonna give it a. But I did walk away from it very, very impressed. I'm gonna give it a 5. 5 out of 6. I'm gonna give it a 5.
I agree. It's got a 5 for me as well. I was pleasantly surprised because, like you, I heard some kind of disparaging remarks about it not being as good as it could have been, and a lot of people see Jordan Peele's name on something and are like, "Oh, it's a Jordan Peele movie." And
Yeah,
it's not a Jordan Peele movie.
No,
but
he's a co-writer and a producer. He's
right.
not. This isn't like a Jordan Peele joint.
Right. But that being said, yeah, I was impressed. Again, the commentary that was addressed, I feel they did a good job with, and I highly recommend it for your spooky season.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know, man. I think it's one of those movies that sometimes you people tell you about a horror movie and they're like, it fucking sucks, don't watch it, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna avoid it. But this one, anybody tells you that it's like not as good as the first one, or like it's a little ham-fisted or blah 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 blah. I'd say watch it and see for yourself.
Yeah, it's a pretty well made movie in general.
Yeah,
so like, even if you don't like the story told or like you don't like specific actors, I think you can't help but walk away saying, yeah, it's a well made movie.
Yeah. You're not gonna like it if you're one of these people who is like, I'm tired of politics and everything that I watch. It's like, all right, well then don't watch.
This movie's woke.
Yeah, don't watch Candyman. You're not gonna enjoy it.
No,
because it is woke. Yeah. Sorry, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Any
hooser.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about this before, but are we reviewing the beers too, or are we just?
Well, these we already did.
Right.
So do we? I don't know. To me, I feel like we don't.
Let's not. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
Let's just say generally how we felt about them.
Generally, I feel a little fucking drunk. Generally, I feel like I have a little. Yeah.
I feel like my eyes have slowly closed more and more every minute of this episode.
I feel like I'm maybe like 45 minutes in, I was like talking very deliberately. So
this feels like the end of most nights.
Yeah, exactly.
So have one of these if you want to feel like the end of your night is about half an hour in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would only suggest that if you wanted to do something with a really high ABV,
sure.
If you're looking for something to enjoy, to drink, to have a good time with, I would not suggest it. I don't think it's that good. Yeah, I don't think it's that good, honestly.
Yeah.
It's
too much. It's too much.
It's too much.
It's just too much.
I get what they're doing. I get the whole thing, and now the 120 minute has become this thing of legend and whatnot, and it comes back every year.
Like the Candyman himself.
Like the Candyman himself.
Right.
But I just don't. I don't. It's not enjoyable.
No, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. So
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. All right. Well, let's close this baby off.
Let's get the fuck out of here.
UCF is already playing. We're running late.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to go.
Uh-huh.
But this has been the One Reel In podcast. As always, Marco Dupa.
What's up?
And me, myself, I'm Adam Obesius Rodriguez. And I think this one, we have to say,
Let's all go to the
cut!
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the Let's all go to the Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the Let's all go to the Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.